The next cause of stress I want to talk about is external. And these are things that affect us from our surroundings and environment. These are things like competitions, the crowds, daily hassles we face during our lives, or major life events. An example of this would be with daily hassles for an athlete to get to training day in day out, or having to travel to training, travel to games, or sometimes it could be an away game, and getting there could be a hassle. This kind of pressure could build up and could cause the athlete to get stressed, and this will affect their performance negatively on the pitch. Another type of stress may be personal factors, and these are things such as friends, family, partners, or maybe lifestyle factors such as money. An example would be when Wayne Rooney was caught up in a scam involving him and a prostitute. This caused his performance to dip because his mind was elsewhere. Your occupation may also be a cause of stress. An example may be if you're a football player and you've been in England your entire life, and you've recently transferred to a foreign team, perhaps somewhere like Spain, so you might get homesick and your performance may dip as a result. Finally, another cause of stress may be to do with the sport itself, which can include relationships with teammates and coaches. For example, if an athlete has disagreements with coaching staff about how they're treating the club or how they're treating the player themselves, then this will affect their performance greatly on the pitch, as it will most likely decrease. Now we'll talk about symptoms of stress. When you're in a situation you find threatening, your stress response is activated. The way you respond depends on how seriously you view the threat. The response is controlled by two parts of your nervous system: the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system. The sympathetic nervous system is responsible for fight or flight response. It gives you energy you need to run away when you sense threat. The sympathetic responses include dilated pupils, increased heart rate, increased breathing rate, increased adrenaline production, hair stand on end, and increased heat production. Once the stress has passed, the parasympathetic nervous system begins to work. The parasympathetic nervous system helps you to relax, so it does the opposite of the sympathetic nervous system. It achieves this relaxation by producing the following responses: pupils constrict, heart rate decreases, breathing rate decreases, blood goes to all the major organs, digestion will resume, and body temperature will decrease. Now moving on to anxiety. Now my definition of anxiety is the feeling one gets from an interaction between the environment and themselves, and it's a response that is a response to the demands placed upon them during the environment. Now, my reference definition would be a negative emotional state with feelings of nervousness, worry, and apprehension associated with activation or arousal of the body. Now, there are two main types of anxiety: trait anxiety and state anxiety. Trait anxiety is an aspect of personality and part of an individual's pattern of behavior. It is a behavioral tendency to feel threatened even in situations that are not really threatening, then to respond to this with a high level of state anxiety. An example of this could be a bodybuilder knowing he has to get off the stage and he gets anxious because he's insecure about his body, and then that would cause anxiety and cause trait anxiety. The next type of anxiety is state anxiety. State anxiety is a temporary, ever-changing mood state that is an emotional response to any situation that the person considers threatening. And I'll just quote an example of this would be during a World Cup final. One of the players may have a high level of state anxiety, but as the game begins and goes on, those anxiety levels may have gone. But as it goes to a penalty shootout at the end of the game, state anxiety levels will increase, and they may end up like maybe performance consisting of missing a penalty because they let state anxiety get better of them. The next type of anxiety is cognitive anxiety. Cognitive anxiety, cognitive state anxiety refers to negative thoughts, nervousness, and worry experienced in certain situations. Symptoms of cognitive anxiety include concentration problems, fear, bad decision making, and when a person's concentration level drops, so does their performance. This is because the levels of anxiety and arousal increase further due to the amount of mistakes they are making. This means increased levels of arousal can lead to increased levels of cognitive anxiety, cognitive state anxiety, which will lead to a decreased performance due to the fact that they're getting too worked up, they start to make more mistakes, and they just generally have their performance dips. A sporting example of this would not be know where to put a a penalty in football, like know where to put it top right, top left, bottom left, or something like that. Now the symptoms for cognitive anxiety would be indecisiveness, confusion, feeling heavy, negative thoughts, poor concentration, irritability, and fear. The next type of anxiety is somatic anxiety. Somatic anxiety is where your perception of the physiological changes that happen in a particular situation, things such as increased heart rate, increased breathing rate, sweating, and muscle tension may occur. For example, an athlete could be worried about running a race as they and their heart rate increases. And this increase in heart rate is actually beneficial to the performance, but the athlete could perceive this as a negative effect. The symptoms for somatic anxiety would be increased blood pressure, a pounding heart, increased respiration rate, sweating, adrenaline rush, twitching, or trembling. Moving on to behavioural responses. There's also behavioural response. This would be the behaviour exhibit when under stress. An example of this would be if a player is confronted with another player who's angry or upset, then they could either run away or, as this picture shows, they could fight. Now, the behavioural symptoms are common ones are biting fingernails, lethargic movement, inhibited posture, playing safe, going through the motions, introversion, extroversion, or fidgeting or avoiding eye contact. The effects on sports performance. Now I'm going to talk about the effects anxiety has on sports performance. Anxiety suggests that it's a negative mental state characterized by worry and apprehension. It suggests that if this negative mental state becomes too great, for example, the player may get too anxious, too apprehensive, then the performance will suffer. A sporting example of this would be if a tennis player like Novak Djokovic starts to worry about letting his fans down, and not being able to play well, and his performance will slip, and he'll probably end up losing the game. Constantly worrying about an event can make you think that you're not good enough for the event, so you will not succeed, which will therefore make your performance dip even more. This will therefore be a loss of self-confidence, makes you feel that you are less likely to win, which is a decreased expectation of success. An example of this would be if Johan Blake went to the Olympics, worrying about whether or not he would beat Bolt, and then his performance would suffer greatly because he's worrying too much about things that are out of his control, and he should be more focused on just running to the best of his ability and not focusing on Usain Bolt. Heightened cognitive anxiety means there is an increase in nervousness, apprehension, and worry. Many athletes are afraid to fail, and so they don't play to their best ability. Once an athlete starts focusing on failure, it will more likely happen. Heightened fear of failure can result in negative psychological responses. This being hyper-elevated muscle tension, a lack of movement coordination, which will affect performance negatively. If Andy Murray suffers from heightened fear of failure, he'll get nervous and start to worry about failure, so therefore he'll have the fear of failure. When he starts to focus on failure, there's a higher chance it will happen, and it will most likely happen. This will therefore lead to hyper-elevated muscle tension, a lack of coordination, and his performance will slip greatly. Now on to concentration. The negative effects of anxiety can affect concentration and attention levels. I've also used some sporting examples in relation to concentration earlier. Concentration is your ability to link movement and awareness to the focus of what you're doing. It gives you a competitive advantage against others. It lets you evaluate all situations fairly, which therefore leads to you performing at a high level. People with high arousal levels exhibit more concentration and focus. People with low arousal levels may have low concentration, similar to when you wake up in the morning and how you feel. High concentration and focus benefits an athlete's performance, depending on the sport. This is because it can lead to hypersensitivity to irrelevant stimuli or blind athletes to other relevant information. Low concentration and focus can affect an athlete's performance, as it can mean they don't have the capacity to perceive and respond to relevant sensory information. Different sports you need to have different levels of concentration. A sporting example of this would be in weightlifting. You have high levels of arousal, but you don't need a lot of concentration. And in darts, it's the opposite, meaning you would need a lot of concentration, but not a lot of arousal. As arousal increases, it can also affect your attention span. When your arousal is low, you have a broad attention span. Compared to when you have your optimal attention span, you have an optimal attention span. This means you are focused on all the things important, all the relevant things that will make you perform better. Like explained earlier, where the keeper is standing when about to take a shot, and you see how much power and curve you need on the shot. Then finally, when you are highly aroused, you have narrow vision and have a narrow attention span. This is also known as tunnel vision, like the sporting example I gave earlier. When you are in an important moment of the match, for example, a penalty kick in football, your attention and concentration levels will be high. This can therefore lead to becoming optimally aroused, which therefore mean our attention is going in the correct direction as it will be focused on the important aspects of the game, which in this moment in time would be to score the penalty with 3 points and gain your team an advantage. So that was my Psychology 2 assignment.